Paranormal. It surrounds us. It's everywhere. Tonight, you will hear from the people who live and work within these highly active locations. All in the efforts to discover America's most haunted. With your host, ghost hunter and author, Dan Terry.
Good evening, boys and ghouls. I am Dan Terry, your ghost host with the most haunted. And we are switching it up a little bit, as you guys know. Lately, I've been doing a lot more work on the cryptids because it's really an up-and-coming deal in the paranormal, fast. Sure, we've had the Loch Ness Monster and a few other lake monsters, gosh, for the last 150 years. We've had Bigfoot for the last 150 years, but more and more, some of the old legends of the Appalachians and other areas are coming back again. And the Dogman is making just this huge inroad into the cryptid world. I mean, I know I've read some stuff from like back in the 1950s, 60s, 70s about him, but it's not something that really got heavy until just recently. And you guys know I've got a lot of guests who have talked about both Bigfoot and the Dogman. And I hesitate to say it this way, but I've had a few that are just interesting, kind of wild, interesting stories, fun to listen to. But my guest tonight, he's an old favorite. He's been here before, and his name is Robert Prevo. He has a background in biological sciences. Mostly, he more leans toward evolution. He was the administrator of the cryptozoology.com website for some time. For a couple of years, he ran cryptidcats.com, sorry. And he has written several books, including Monstrous Arkansas was one big one that we talked about last time. And Anomalogy. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with that word. But it's still all about the cryptids and about creatures. And he's got a new book out coming. It's not out yet. I got him early. We're going to talk about that too. So let me introduce you once again, a returning guest, to Robert Prevo.
Hey, Dan, how's it going? Hey, everybody.
I have had some guests. You and I chatted a little bit. I know kind of what you think on this, but I've had some guests with some pretty wild theories on Dogman and Bigfoot. Specifically, one protects us from the other, and the other is out to attack humans specifically. Let's go back to werewolves. What's the difference between a werewolf and Dogman? Was that some kind of mixture of legend?
Well, I mean, if you look in folklore, so you have to kind of separate the two. So you have folklore and then you have cryptozoology. So if you go into folklore, and the old folklore that's back in Europe, back in the Slavic regions, the Germanic regions and everything, that's where you get into the werewolves and stuff like that. And of course, the werewolf is someone who has been cursed or bewitched and usually has like a fur belt or some kind of thing that they wear that allows them to change completely into a wolf. They don't turn into this half human, half wolf thing like Hollywood has them doing nowadays. They originally turned into a wolf, and they would, go about the countryside and killing and eating people. So I think probably one of the most famous ones was the Beast of Chevron. And that was a pretty interesting story. Now that happened not just in folklore, but it was actual factual accounts as far as people getting killed and about the presence of a wolf. But they pretty well try to wrap that up into being a true account of a werewolf, as take it as a grain of salt. So now Dogman, of course, is a cryptid. And whenever we talk about cryptids, we're talking about something that is always that thing. So it's always Dogman. It's always this thing that appears to be half human, half canine, roaming through the woods, howling, has the personification of what we think a werewolf in Hollywood would look like, which is pretty interesting when you think about that. But, it's kind of its own thing.
Where does and I can't remember the name right now, and I'm ashamed of myself, but the shapeshifter from the Navajo legends that can turn himself into that.
Yeah, well, you're talking about that. Now that's something completely different. So you're talking about Skinwalker or Anomalogists. The Skinwalker, and the only reason I know Anomalogists is because my buddy Ryan. He hammers it into my brain all the time. So anyway, yeah, so that's somebody who is in the Navajo tradition and heritage, who follows a darker path of magic and is able to shapeshift into different animals. It's not just like a werewolf, but they can change into many different animals. So I'm sure that within that tradition, they can change into something that's more half human, half wolf, half human, half deer, half, different things like that. But it's always pictured as being something more like the Dogman, because that's the popular trope right now, especially as far as images.
The Skinwalker then would be more aligned with the werewolf, except he has more control over what he turns into. Correct. And Wolfman was just completely Hollywood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Wolfman, we take him out of the number. Is there enough evidence, in your opinion, that we can say there is Dogmen and it is a cryptid?
That's the tricky question right there, because whenever we look at Bigfoot, we find a lot of evidence that pops up the same, over time. We know to look for tracks. Everybody knows what a Bigfoot track looks like. It looks like a big human foot. So, there's that we look for. We look for structures. We look for hair samples. We look for different things like that. We know the different yells, howls. These are all things that are pretty indicative of Bigfoot being in the area, or we believe anyway. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to Dogman, that becomes a little bit tougher because, so like Dr. Meldrum, who recently passed away, had a database of Sasquatch tracks, casts, and things like that. So we actually knew what those feet were going to look like. Now, the same thing can't be said with Dogman. Whenever we look at the stuff for Dogman and the tracks, it's so varied across the spectrum that we really can't nail down what's real, what's hoax, what's this, what's that. And that's one of the things that I and several other investigators are really trying to work on, is trying to nail down what's real, what's not. So in saying, do we have enough evidence to say that Dogman is real? Not really. Not really. We have to work on that. We have to be able to present a case, and we haven't done our due diligence, and we're working on doing better.
Okay. Let me ask you, and if you don't want to go this far, just say so, but what's your honest opinion? Is it real, or is there just not enough evidence for you to make that call?
Half of me wants to say that I don't have enough evidence to make that call, but I believe that people are seeing something. I've talked to enough people who I believe what they have to say. I believe them on many other different levels. I don't see any reason why they would lie to me about this. So I am a firm believer that they are encountering something. Now, I think just like with any other anomaly out there, there are several different things happening simultaneously, and they're all falling under one umbrella. So when you look at, let's say, Bigfoot, for instance, we have people who have encounters with Bigfoot where they encounter orbs, or they encounter other things, bright lights in the woods, and other paranormal things. And the descriptions of Bigfoot can vary quite a bit. Some look very ape-like, some look very human-like. Now, could that be simply because that's the way the person perceives it, or is there actually a variance in there? That's the problem we'd run into. So the same thing happens with Dogman. like I said, I really believe that there's something that they're running into, but as to whether it is one specific thing, one specific breed, creature, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. We're digging into that.
If I remember correctly, having been on the outskirts of this for many, many years, the skunk ape in Florida is considerably shorter than the Sasquatch of the Northeast. And
yes,
the smell was completely different and much stronger for one than the other. The Momo from Missouri was a slightly different footprint and a different height than the others. So is that a breed? Like a German Shepherd would be different from a Doberman? Or is this, again, the people making mistakes?
Again, okay, so what you're talking about, where you're talking about the skunk ape, Momo, and then you talk about like the patty type and the other, it could be simply a variance due to isolated groups. It could be a variance due to some inbreeding. It could be a variance that's due to the topography where they're at. Genetics is going to play a huge difference in there. There's a lot of variables genetically that we could look at that could make for different things. There could be definite reasons why definitely there is reasoning why one farther north would be larger than one down south. Mm-hmm. And we're not sure what we're dealing with. Are we dealing with a primate like a gorilla type, or are we dealing with a primate that's more human? So there's a lot going on there. And so the same thing could be said with Dogman. We could be seeing certain groups that are more vicious than other groups are. We could see ones that maybe live more in a swampy area. Other ones live in more of a desert area. We again, the jury is still out. We're still collecting evidence. So yeah, but good questions. Definitely questions that need to be asked.
Well, to move on with that, because this is the question I know you've heard, everyone's heard. We don't find the carcasses of dead cryptids.
Right.
But we haven't found anything from Dogman. Is there a reason for that you can think of? I've talked to the people who say, well, Bigfoot is interdimensional. Yeah, okay. And I get Bigfoot sightings seem to follow UFO sightings and poltergeist activity. So I know what you're saying with that.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, we should have found something after looking for Bigfoot since Teddy Roosevelt, so 200 years or so.
Right. And it's possible maybe we have in the past. It's possible that people have recovered some of these corpses, and it's possible that maybe there are certain people that don't want everybody to know about that. I'm not going to get into the conspiracy theory, but there's a little bit of weight to what people have to say as far as being, if you have disclosure of these cryptids, just like we're looking at disclosure with UFOs and aliens and all that going on right now. If you have disclosure of these cryptids, you're opening up a door for a load of questions that people probably aren't ready for. That's going to change. Okay, so let's say Sasquatch is a type of human instead of an ape. Okay, so religiously, that is going to open a whole lot of questions. I was talking with a friend of mine, Phil, the other day on one of his podcasts, and I said, everybody wants the answers. But nobody really thinks about what that answer means. For somebody somewhere with authority to go, yep, there absolutely is Bigfoot, and we're about to present the body. Okay, you don't realize that what you're doing when you do that, you're sitting on the side of a massive lake and you're dropping a rock in one spot. And the waves that go out from that are exponential and come back, and you have no idea what the effect is going to be on the populace, on society, the way that people think and live their lives, because that one thing is going to change everything.
I understand what you're saying. We've been doing that in the UFO field for 75, 80 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the something report where they come out and said it would affect churches, which would affect people's morals, which would affect how the governments have to run things. I see what you're saying, but at some point, don't we have to admit when there's our history's wrong?
Yes, we do. But do you want that bucket of cold water thrown on you all at once, or would you like to dip your toe into it and slowly?
Well, I'm one that jumps into the pool to get used to it. So, but yeah, there's just so much on this. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and God knows, Robert, you know more about this than I do. But I just don't like the idea, and I'm sure you're well aware of the legends of giants.
Right.
Giant humans, but they are giants. And the idea that the Smithsonian has been taking these things and destroying them for 100 some years and hiding it, that just grills me the wrong way.
Oh, it does me too. Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely want the truth. That's why I do what I do. I'm seeking that truth and trying to help other people to be able to seek the truth through the entomology book that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But we have to be realists too, in that what we discover, what we come up with, what we present, number one, even with profound evidence, we're going to have people saying, no, that's a lie. And they're going to do everything they can to disprove everything that you've just said and every bit of evidence that you just put forward. And then you're going to have the other groups who are going to come forward, and you're going to have a split in those two, because one of them is going to say this is going to save us, and the other is going to say this is going to destroy us.
Yeah.
So, you kind of gotta try and figure out where your path that you're going through the weeds before you get there.
I understand your point completely. I see this as being used as an excuse just to keep it hidden.
Yeah, sometimes I do too. I agree. But it's a big deal.
I see your point. Again, I don't necessarily agree with it.
Right.
I mean, your point is this is why they're doing it. Possibly, you're right. That's probably it. I still don't like them doing it.
I agree.
But, moving along, I wanted to ask you more about the Dogman, because he is getting so much more attention now, even than the Sasquatch has been lately. What is the patterns? What do we know about them?
What do you mean as far as the patterns with Dogman?
Well, we hear a lot about Dogmen, like people saying it was tracking them. They had to shoot at it to get it to go away because it was going to attack. There's all kinds of stories of it chasing, Dogman chasing cars, but yeah, not so much chasing it as running alongside it.
Right.
Trying to get into places like the old Boggy Creek monster allegedly did.
Right.
There's a lot of stories. How many of those is accurate? How many of them is just for entertainment?
I think if you go through and you start really looking at the massive number of stories that have started popping up, you have to look at it with a bit of a skeptical eye.
Mm-hmm.
What was the saying that with when you make how did it go? Anyway, if you say that there is something great, you have to present great evidence. I can't remember the exact phrasing with it, and almost none of this has any evidence with it. It's, I'm going to tell you my story. This is what happens to me, and that is the weight of the evidence is simply my story. I don't have any scars to show you from where the claws hit me. I don't have necessarily a vehicle that's been attacked by the thing. I don't have evidence, blood evidence, don't have a body. And usually I don't have any eyewitnesses. Usually it's one person who this happened to me. And oddly enough, a lot of the stories happened about 10 to 20 years ago. Well, 10 to 20 years ago, this happened to me, and I didn't want to come forward. I didn't want to say anything because people were going to think I was crazy, which to a degree can be true. So if you look at it statistically, most likely, at very least, 50% of the stories that have popped up about eyewitnesses encountering dogmen have to be false. I believe that Now that means that there's 50% that are true. Even if 1% is true, that means that something is out there.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So I think that, there's a lot of 15 minutes of fame. People are wanting their 15 minutes of fame to be on, the podcast like we have and others. There's some that are very, very specifically focused on Dogman. And I think that's, for those people that's important in their life that they do that. You start to get more into the psychological welfare of the person who's telling the story rather than the Dogman story itself. And some things are actually very compelling until you pick out certain little aspects where you can tell that somebody has not really encountered something. And sometimes it's pretty tough. Sometimes they're pretty good with their stories. But I think there are a lot of true stories out there. I don't want anybody thinking that I'm going to go through and, if you go to Robert, Robert's going to pick you apart and try and just prove, or prove you a hoax. Not at all. Not at all. The group that I work with, the NADP, North American Dogman Project, we are absolutely inclusive. If you've got a story that you want to tell that, you had an eyewitness encounter with, no matter how crazy it is, no matter what I don't care if 30 of them were chasing you through the woods and you escaped by a miracle, or, a crocodile ate one of them or something. I don't care. You tell that story. You send that email into us and you tell us, and we'll investigate it. We'll go through and we'll do the best we can to investigate the story, and I'll add it to the database. I work their analytics division. I'm the director of the analytics division with the NADP. So we go through the stories and we start looking at what's commonplace, what reoccurs in one story after another, what doesn't, what stands out. We look at the different statistics as far as the weather, the seasonality of everything, geography. Was it close to a river? Was it close to a swamp? Was it close to a graveyard? What kind of things keep popping out? Because we want to do that. We want to build these databases so that we can say, okay, if we go out somewhere, we know chances are pretty good. This is a good spot to look for Dogman, just like the BFRO and a lot of other groups have done with Bigfoot.
Is there a hot spot? Is there places that there are so many more sightings here? I know Michigan and Ohio started it, but where else people guess?
Yeah, we've had a lot of stuff through the years. Michigan, Wisconsin, Elkhorn, Wisconsin was big because of the Beast of Bray Road. There has been a lot of stuff out of Ohio. The Ozarks, where I'm at, there's been several that have come out of the Ozarks. The Appalachians have had, of course, the Appalachians. Everything weird happens in Appalachia.
That's where I'm at now. I came from the Ozarks to the Appalachians.
Right. Of course, you'll get it too down in Louisiana because werewolves and vampires are a big thing down there. You get into the Rougarou stories as well down there. When we look at topography or we look at certain things that seem to reoccur, burial grounds are a big one. And not necessarily just Native American burial grounds. We're also looking at cemeteries and, things like that.
I did not hear that. Go ahead.
We got that. And then swamps. Areas that are rather swampy seem to attract these things, and we don't know why. But those two things seem to reoccur. Derelict buildings, especially derelict buildings that are out, kind of forgotten in the forest. They seem to be something that attract different things, not just Dogman, but of course other paranormal things.
Yeah.
So another one is caves, mines, areas like that. So, if you look at it from a biological point of view, that kind of makes sense because these animals, if they're animals, are going to need an area to den up at certain periods of time or to take their prey to where they can set and they can eat their prey in peace.
Okay. Because it just popped into my head, and I'm making an assumption here that may or may not be true.
Sure.
Wolves, wild dogs run in packs.
Yep.
Does Dogman, Because Bigfoot is not known to run in packs, maybe family units, but not packs.
And it may be the same way with Dogmen. We have some encounters. One of the most popular encounters is the wolf pack of Palmyra, Maine. That's where there was a family that lived in a farmhouse. They had just recently moved into the farmhouse. I think it's the Martin family. And, of course, there was, to shorten the story, there was a pack of these Dogman things that were in the area.
Okay.
So, and they kind of culminated in a bit of a siege event where these things were attacking the house one night. It all worked out. But it's more common actually to run into one or maybe two of these things rather than a whole pack of them. Just like with Bigfoot, it's most of the time people will have a solitary eyewitness account. More often than not, if they run into a group of them, it's usually somebody who's researching an area or they're in an area overnight where these things have a chance to move in on their own volition to see what's going on, probably more out of curiosity than anything else.
Boy, can you believe it's been all 26 minutes already? I always like talking to you, Robert. You're scientific, but you can put it out there in such a way that we can all understand it. That's awesome.
Thank you, Dan.
I'm going to pop you off the screen for a minute. I got to throw a couple commercials up, and we'll be right back. All right?
All right.
This gets me into a lot of questions about the Dogman. It's great that Robert's here because he has got a lot more research to fall back on than I do. And again, for me, this whole deal just came up in the last maybe 5 years or so. I know I've read stories from beyond that, but I don't recall them until just recently. But anyway, we're going to talk more about that in just a few minutes, but I want you guys to check this out, and we'll be right back.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com. The truth, it's out there, and it's waiting for you. The Unexplained Network is your source for the best in paranormal programming, live video streaming, and audio streaming from hauntings, UFOs, Bigfoot, cryptids, and the ever-expanding realm of the unexplained. Listen live or on demand now on Spreaker, Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeart, and Pockets all over the World Wide Web. The Unexplained Network, where unexplained lives.
Friends, the Onyx Network is growing so fast, I cannot even keep track of all the new shows that come. All the shows just didn't make it and go. There's so much going on here. You just need to get on to unxnetwork.com, check it out. Check out the different shows. And all the shows, most all of them are available right here on YouTube and Rumble, especially the in-house shows. So I'll talk more about that at the end. I do want to get back to Robert because this is really intriguing. We brushed on it earlier. Are you familiar with the Marley Woods down in your area?
Sounds familiar. There's a lot of cases. It'll probably spark something once you mention it.
The Marley Woods is a place well known for UFOs. Some of the top UFO people are down there. Folks from Skinwalker Ranch came down there and said, "Oh, this is crazier than what we deal with."
Oh, yeah. I've heard a little bit about that. People
keep it very quiet down there because they don't want folks tromping around on their farms and such. But I know one story of a person told the investigators was about as he was driving along, there was a group of people with robes walking into a cemetery. He stopped. It was on private property, yelled at them. Nobody moved. He fired a round from a 22 into the air. The last one in line, according to him, turned and looked at him, and it had a wolf face. And then as each one walked into the cemetery gates, they disappeared. There's UFOs. They actually had the carcass of a horse. They checked on the horse, went to do something else. When they come back, the horse had actually exploded inside the barn. There's poltergeist activity. There's UFOs seen by constantly, and weird creatures, cryptids. And I'm sure Dogman, as well as Bigfoot, and these tall, almost horse-sized dogs that they shoot at, and it would shudder, but there was no blood. A lot of stuff going on down there. But again, Dogman makes the appearance there. He's made it in other areas. Skinwalker Ranch reports it. Why is all this stuff going on at the same time? It's very similar to Mothman, when they had UFOs and creatures and poltergeist activity.
It is. We have areas like Skinwalker Ranch, and like you were talking about, actually there's a few of those around, where there seems to be a concentration of what we refer to as high strangeness. Okay. So you'll get the myriad of things. You'll have everything from UFOs to what I refer to as paranormal, which has to do with ghosts and stuff like that. And then you'll get into the cryptids. So it all goes back and forth. You've got everything that keeps showing up in there, along with other things like loss of time. People will black out. Different health issues will pop up for no reason.
Oh, yes.
Talking about Skinwalker Ranch, I watched that show and I find it very interesting, especially when they start talking about the sound wave frequency that's 6.1 something megahertz or whatever, and it keeps repeating. This really interesting stuff, and that's why you wonder, is it one thing? John Keel, he talked about how all of these things came from one source. He talked about what he referred to as the Goblin universe, that there was all this one source that was putting out all of these strange things like Mothman, Bigfoot, and these one-offs like goblins and three-legged creatures, all kinds of different stuff. And I wondered about that myself, but every one of those things, the problem being is we have to be careful when we do the investigating that we're looking at one thing at a time and investigating that one anomaly at a time, because we have a tendency to take individual anomalies and place them as one big thing. One reference that I can make, a group of books that was really popular, and now the author is starting to be under fire, and that's the 411, Missing 411.
Yeah, I remember when that came out. He was on the Art Bell show several times.
Oh, yeah, David Paulides was everywhere. And I even got the books. I mean, I read through them. I thought there was something really interesting going on, but there was some investigators who started picking it apart case by case, which they should do. And each individual case, they started finding there were answers, very common answers. And some of the cases that he had in his books had been solved. And there was nothing strange to them. It was the way that they were presented. So we have to be careful that we're not doing and replicating that to try and take the proverbial molehill and make a mountain out of it. There are definitely things that are going on when you look at Skinwalker Ranch and these other areas. There's a lot of them referred to as triangles and things like that.
Yeah.
But you have to investigate one case at a time. And then take a look at, okay, they're all happening here. Why are they all happening here? Is there a relationship between all of these things? Is there not? But definitely there is a lot of weird stuff that will happen in one specific area. I've even been on Bigfoot investigations where we saw orbs forest at night, or we saw flashes of light that look like a camera going off. I've even seen that from up in the sky in the middle of the night or early in the morning. And I have no idea why that's happening. And I don't know if it's related to Bigfoot or if it's related to something else that just seems to be in the same area. There's a lot of weird things that happen when you get out in the forest and you get away from,
Electricity.
the city. Yeah, get away from electricity. Yeah.
The idea, though, of Bigfoot being interdimensional would almost blend into the pops of light as it crosses back and forth. Do you give that any credence at all?
The biologist side of me says no. So I would say I really want to say no. That absolutely there's nothing to that. But then I also, as an investigator, have to keep an open mind until I can be absolutely disproven or proven. It's still a question, and it's still a relevant question. So I witnessed it. I witnessed the weird things. I've seen something run through the forest that I couldn't see, but I could tell it was running through the forest. Mm-hmm. I've gotten the feelings of being stared at by something in the forest. And I could pinpoint exactly where it was, but I couldn't see anything there. So I can't write it all off. I can't say, that these are just, the ramblings of madmen. There's something to it, because I'd have to put myself in the category of being a madman, so there's something going on. We just have to gather the information, gather the data. And that's the hard part. That's the part that people don't have the stick-to-itiveness for, is to stay there when things get hairy and continue to gather data.
That's when I want to be there, is when things start getting hairy. Yeah. Last time you was on, we talked about your book of Monstrous Arkansas. Mm-hmm. I just did an interview. I think it's going to show in a week or two with a couple who live on some property down there in Arkansas. That's, I think, 2 hours from Boggy Creek, but the sounds of the Boggy Creek monster they positively identified as what they hear.
Right.
And so there's a lot going on in Arkansas. We've got, you wrote Anomalogy.
Yes.
And we talked a little bit about that last time. I don't think you had it out yet, but it was covered. Remember, you had the cover. So what's that book about?
Okay, so Anomalogy, that's volume 1. So Anomalogy is a way of taking a step back. So we take a step back and we look at, traditionally, there are 3 different views of these different things going on. So you have the paranormal, you have cryptozoological, and you have the ufological. So the paranormal generally has to do with ghosts, spirits, demons, things like that, more spiritual. When you look at cryptozoological, it was always meant to be flesh and blood. These were animals. These were undiscovered animals, and no paranormal was involved in it in any way, shape, or form. And then when you get into ufological or ufology, that was strictly aliens and the ships and things like that. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the first things that really crossed the barrier between all 3 of them is orbs. Orbs show up in all of them. So, an orb by definition is a UFO or a UAP. It's an unidentified flying object. But it also has a certain spiritualness to it. But it also pops up whenever we go investigating for Bigfoot or other cryptids. And so it kind of, this one thing that moved between all 3. Then as cryptozoology started to get more popular on the internet and through podcasts and stories, it started to become more involved with the paranormal. The paranormal and UFOs and all this kind of seemed to all meld together. But the problem was the way they were being approached. Now, each one of them had its own problems as far as being more scientific in looking at these things. A lot of times we'll see where there's a lot of bias, whether it's UFOs, cryptids, or the paranormal, where there's a lot of bias that happens between what's really going on and the evidence that's being presented and the investigator's personal beliefs. So we have to be able to, as scientists, as citizen scientists, as investigators, to set our personal beliefs aside. So the only way I could really think to attack that was to start all over. So I wanted to take a step back from cryptozoology, from the paranormal, from ufology, and look at it as the anomaly that it is. So when you encounter any one of these strange things, it's an anomaly. It really is, because it's not what we consider to be a part of the normal world or the natural world. Therefore, we have paranormal, supernatural, preternatural, and different things like that to explain these things. But the problem was we weren't doing our due diligence. We weren't like I said, looking at this as one thing at a time. I mean, etymology applies in the paranormal realm just as well as it does everywhere else. So if you go into a house that you believe is haunted, you've got somebody who tells you, I've had these accounts, this has happened. Okay, well, you're going to take note of that. You're going to work through that and work through with them on what information you can gather. Then you're going to do your investigation. And as you do your investigation, hopefully using actual scientific instruments, and gather what information you can. And then start to work through that and see what holds up scientifically, what doesn't, what can we get to repeat? Do I go in there again and the same thing will happen or something similar will happen? Do I go to another haunted place and the same thing happens? What it's about the analytics, it's about the statistics, it's about building the databases. It's about developing procedures and processes for doing this in a responsible way. For me, it's about how do I take what I've learned through 30 years plus of doing all of this stuff and pass it along to the next generation so that that generation of investigators and researchers isn't stumbling just like we are right now, because the people who came before us did good work, but we're kind of spinning our wheels right now. We're just regurgitating everything that's been said and adding little twists here and there, whether it be from this point of view or that point of view, with no foundational evidence. So we need to get back to what we were supposed to be doing in the first place, and it's trying to solve the puzzle. There's so many different venues out there that aren't trying to solve the puzzle. They're just trying to blow it out of proportion. Sure. and make it, this big,
and make money out of it.
Of course, it's absolutely it's the big money making thing, and we've got to, as researchers, I can't do that. I have to be careful because I walk a thin line as a researcher and a podcaster. You do that too. You want to be able to present interesting stuff that people want to listen to, want to watch, and everything. But as an investigator, you're searching for the truth. You want to go out, you want to have the experiences, you want to see what's going on, and you want to be able to bridge that gap. And that's what I want, to be able to teach and pass along. And like that book, Etymology, Volume 1, again, that is Volume 1. Volume 2 is on its way. It's being written right now. That's Introduction to Concepts, and the next one has to do with evidence and analytics. And that's another big book. I think that was, almost 300 pages right there. Dang. And so the next one is going to be comparable. So it's a textbook. It's a textbook that you can hand out and you can go through it like a course, and it will teach you. In the next one, I'm going to teach you how to gather evidence, how to preserve evidence, how to present evidence, how to use that evidence to develop analytics, how that analytics will then affect the next volume as we go along. Because right now, I've got 5 volumes planned.
Wow, so that's looking forward to it. And then you did write another one. The North American Dogman Project uses it as a handbook. So it's not available to anyone who's not a member, correct?
Correct.
But that also, I assume, would be explaining to people how to do this without bringing your emotions into it.
Absolutely. Now, like I said, I run the analytics department in the NADP, and so the guys underneath me needed and it's just something we do. We do handbooks and textbooks to pass along so that, they know what I expect of them. As far as these are the forms, these are the way they're going to be filled out, and this is why they're going to be filled out. So yeah, that's exactly what that is. That's the what do you call that? The
Field
order
guide.
of operation. Yeah,
Okay.
you know, this is how you're going to do it. This is what's expected of you.
Kind
And
of a policy for
yes,
investigators.
absolutely. I mean, we have the primary field researchers book, and then this is secondary. This is only if you're a part of the analytics division. This is what you follow.
And of course, the new one that is coming out, but it's not out yet. The there's that word again. Anomalists, whatever, about Dogman.
The Anomalogists Comprehensive Guide to Dogman.
Okay,
Yes.
so is this full of Dogman stories, or
No.
is this actually the scientific search for Dogman?
We're starting at the basics. So we're going through folklore, history. We're going through the popular sightings, or when we talk about like Beast of Bray Road, the Michigan Dogman, Palmyra, Maine, different things like that. So we're looking at that stuff. We're looking at the morphology of Dogman, the descriptions. There tends to be about 2 or 3 different descriptions that pop up. One may be more hyena-like. One may be much more bulky. You may have another one that's thin and scraggly. So we're kind of looking at that, kind of dispelling and working with in tandem the idea that there's these different types. So we're also looking at the paranormal side of it too. So I got about 3/4 of the way through the book, and I was reviewing it, and I thought I really didn't touch on the paranormal side of it, and that's not what I would call a comprehensive book. So I had to go in and add that back in there, because I thought I want to do my due diligence. I want the paranormal side to be discussed as well, because there is an element that's more paranormal rather than just strictly biological that has to be touched on.
The cover is awesome. So is this one. I love the cover of that one. That's got to draw attention. This one here, though, looks very much like the werewolf in Harry Potter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is this what you suspect they look like? Is this what the witnesses pretty much claim?
Well, there's a lot of different variations that happen with Dogman reports. Some people will talk about them being much more upright, more robust, almost like they just walked out of the gym or something, And then others, they fit much more of what a biological wolf type thing would look like, a little more barrel chested. In this one, we went ahead and went with the highly pointed ears that are always mentioned. The amber colored eyes are a reoccurring thing. People often talk about it having a mane and looking rather scraggly, like it's got, just came out of the swamps or whatever. Of course, the clawed hands that are very human-like. And if you happen to look at the rear feet, there's only 3 toes. Well, a lot of people would say, oh, well, that's because it's an AI thing. Well, it's not. I actually asked for that specifically whenever we had this work done. And that's because a lot of the tracks that are found only have 3 toes, and we don't know why.
And I've heard that. I was curious about that. So,
yep.
So we just,
we just kind of tried to fit all of that stuff in there for the cover. There's going to be variations. There's variations in the book. I've got different illustrations that are in there that are going to show different looks. Like I said, one's much more hyena-like. If you get into, I want to say Virginia. It's either Virginia or Kentucky. I think it's Virginia, where they have the talk about Barilla. Barilla is this thing that very Dogman-like, but very heavy set.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got an illustration of something like that. We discussed that. We discussed the Beast of Bray Road, which was much smaller than a lot of the Dogman accounts nowadays. Nowadays, they talk about it being 7-8 foot tall. I think Linda Godfrey's reports put it around 5 and 6 foot tall at the height, right. Tallest. We get reports from all over the country for different heights, different looks. Like I said, sometimes they're really scraggly looking, kind of gray. More often than not, they're big, they're black, they're menacing looking. Like I said, we even get these reports where they look like they just stepped out of the gym, kind of like the werewolves on Underworld. And like I said earlier, we can't discount that. We have to keep, collecting that evidence and see where it leads us. And,
Also,
and that's
cop. We know that people under stress don't remember what they see. Their mind tells them what they expect.
Right. And that's one of the things I discussed too in Anomalogy. One is talking about the eyewitness accounts and how there's different forms of evidence. And we're looking for more of the physical evidence. Now, of course, the eyewitness accounts are going to lead us to that physical evidence. But you have to take what people say, unfortunately, with a grain of salt. I mean, even in other eyewitness accounts, let's say you have 30 people who are in a bank whenever an armed robber comes through.
Yeah.
All 30 people are going to describe that armed robber differently.
Right.
One or two of them is going to be pretty accurate. The rest of them were so scared or so bewildered by everything that was going on that they don't know. They don't really know what's happening.
Or they talked to someone else who told them what they remembered. And
yes.
absorbed that, but not quite the same. So
yeah. There's actually a scientific study that happened not that long ago where they were talking about memory. When you recount something that happened in the past, you're not actually recounting what happened. You're recounting the last time you remembered talking about it.
Yeah.
So that changes even in your own mind as time passes on. So what actually happened in that moment is what your perception is, and your perception of the events isn't always 100%.
Absolutely. Let me ask you one thing. We just got a couple minutes here left, Robert, but I wanted to ask you about Monstrous Arkansas.
Uh-huh.
You talked a little bit about that. Was Dogman involved in that one?
Yes, Dogman did pop up in that one. Of course, that was my first book that I did a publishing on, and I wanted to make sure that we had Dogman in there. And yeah, there's Dogman, and I think there's a number of different variations. I actually have plans to revisit Monstrous Arkansas and update it. And I think what we're going to do once I get Anomalogy out of the way is I'm going to do Monstrous all 50 states, one book at a time. So we're going to do it alphabetically. We're going to start with Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas. So we're just going to go through them all one book at a time. And that'll probably be what I'm doing when they put me in the ground.
All right. And real quick, is there one Dogman story from Arkansas you can give us that gives us an idea of what we're looking at, what people are looking at?
Yeah. There's one I investigated just recently, matter of fact, and it came from near Cave City, Arkansas. There was a lady that got a hold of me. She was driving between Cave City and Evening Shade early in the morning, about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and something ran out in front of her. She saw it out of the corner of her eye, thinking it was a deer or something, so she started to slow down. This thing jumped out on all fours right in front of her, and she said it was, again, one of those pretty scraggly, wet-looking, things. And it turned and looked at her, and it had the amber-colored eyes, and it stood up on 2 legs, and that's when she realized it had these pointed ears, and it was definitely what Dogman. She didn't know what it was at the time. She had never heard of Dogman. And this thing kind of looked at her for a few minutes, and then just boom, ran across and jumped, cleared a barbed wire fence, and took off down the hill. Now she thinks that it had run possibly from the upper fields where there were sheep and other things like that it could have been eating on. And it was returning back early in the morning, back before the sun came up. So, that scared her pretty good. She gave me the account. She took me to exactly where it happened, and we went through the whole thing. But what's interesting is it's not very far from a river that's known as the Strawberry River. And a few years ago, I did an investigation that was right on the banks of the Strawberry River at Horseshoe Bend, Arkansas, where the account was very similar. So there's something going on in that area up there.
That's what you need, is collaborating evidence.
Exactly.
Robert Prevo, you are the author of The Anomologist and, of course, Monstrous Arkansas, and of the upcoming new book about Dogmen.
Yep.
So Yeah, I'm going to skip that word because I don't want to mess it up again. So thanks for coming on. And would you hang loose for just a second while I say goodbye, and then we'll talk a little bit after the show.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks again, man. This has been, I can't believe it's been 55 minutes already. Take care. All right, friends. Like I said, running out of time here, so I'll just go ahead and say, try to look up the Onyx Network. There are episodes and shows about cryptids, but ghosts and UFOs, a lot of UFO stuff on there. And if you join the Onyx Network, you get so much more out of it. Sure, you can still come on here and see these shows, just like I'm talking about, but you also have so much other stuff going on. You get the blog, and like I've said, guys, the blog's been incredible lately. We were right on top of all those scientists that were disappearing. Before that, we was talking about the Tic Tacs and the Navy videos before it hit Congress and all the mainstream media. We're right on top of this kind of stuff. Winged humanoids, some people are talking about that a lot, and it's part of it. And I'll be talking about Dogman because apparently the sightings are going up. There's more of them now every year. People are like UFOs. People are more willing to discuss things than they used to be. So you may want to consider joining. Go to the onyxnetwork.com. Go down on the first page a little bit. It tells you how to join. You also always get the magazine. Magazine comes out monthly, and it is sent to you by email. You can order paper copies if you want, but email, you get the copies once a month. Got some great stories from some of the top writers around. I happen to write the one on the dolls and one on the old Devil's Diner. So there's a lot of stuff going on. But again, cryptids, UFOs, aliens, witchcraft, vampires, you name it, conspiracy, we talk about it. It's all there. And I'm going to go ahead and step out now. So I want you guys to keep an eye out for Dogman. Bigfoot, if you see a Bigfoot Dogman fight, please get it on video. We all want to see that. And I guess most important thing of all is for you all to stay spooked. Good night.